welcome to our short series on veterinary recruiting. I'm Brad McMillan, the owner of RPM Research, and I'm joined by Darla Hoffer, founder of Cornerstone Research. So, hey Darla.
Well, hello, Brad.
Well, Darla and I are recruiting clinical veterinarians in different spaces. So we want to share some of our experiences and real-time industry information for those in the veterinary world, whether that's in drug development, large animal, or companion animal medicine. So, Darla, thanks for joining us. Tell me a little bit more about Cornerstone Recruiting and how did you get in the world of recruiting?
Yeah, you know how that goes. Unexpectedly. I have been a recruiter since I graduated from college, and that's a long time ago. That's because I'm old. And got into engineering recruiting. Just kind of fell into it, a networking, and was handed a Yellow Pages book of about that thick, who said, "Hey, start cold calling," and that's what you did. You started cold calling engineers and clients and all those kinds of things. And it just kept progressing. I stayed in engineering. I opened my own agency in engineering recruiting. And then, we've gone through September 11th and manufacturing issues. And then you went through 2008 and manufacturing literally died. I'm here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it died. So it was like, oh, okay, now what? And got into the veterinary recruiting kind of again, by chance. Answered an ad on all places of Craigslist for a young man who was a hospital administrator and was starting a company called My Veterinary Career, which was one of the starting recruiting agencies for veterinarians in the industry. And that was 12 years ago. And he knew the veterinarian world and I knew the recruiting world. So there was 3-4 of us. His dad was a doctor. There was Katie who had recruiting and sales experience. And we built My Veterinary Career from the ground floor, and to the point where it was sold to AHA. And AHA kind of carved out a niche that they wanted to be in recruiting. And so I worked for AHA for about 8 years as a recruiter. And then
for those of us that may not know, what's AHA?
Yeah, right. The American Animal Hospital Association, one of the big players in the veterinary industry. They do a lot of publications and books and CE and magazine, a trends magazine that they send out regularly to their members. It's a membership organization, and you pass standards to be AHA accredited by their field reps who come out and check you from the front door to the back door, that kind of thing. So they are a big player in the industry. And we did like 8 years, and then they decided they didn't want to be in veterinary recruiting anymore, which kind of makes sense now. And they closed our division and laid us all off. And I was like, okay, now what? And since I had been a previous owner in an agency, I decided to start my own. So Cornerstone Veterinary Recruiting is me. It's my personal baby, and I love what I do. So for me, this has been a good transition, out of corporate actually into being able to have, as a solo owner, being able to be very one-on-one on the intention I can give my clients and I can give the candidates as well. I'm gonna be very straightforward. I don't have to mince anything that I say to anyone. It's kind of a relief.
I like it. Oh, I like it. So yeah, where?
And Brad, what does RPM Research do?
Yeah, so RPM Research is a recruiting and consulting firm, and we work primarily in the preclinical drug development space. And we work with our clients that are contract research organizations, biotech, biopharma, life science research tools companies, on a variety of positions. I guess at some of those senior scientific operations, business development, but one of our large focus areas has been recruiting for lab animal medicine clinical veterinarians. I think over the last 3 years, we haven't had a single month where we're not, having one or many more open recruiting roles for clinical veterinarians in our clients across the United States. So it's not all that we do, but it's a lot of what we've been doing. And just after diving into it, you know, I've been in the preclinical in vivo space, you know, since I started back in 2013, 2014, and just, you know, had fallen in love with the life sciences, and just like you said, sort of fell into it and answered. This was a alumni email of, you know, hey, do you want to be a recruiter? Do you want to, you know, be in the life sciences? And just kind of loved it, and, you know, sort of that first cold call, thought it was a panic attack, and you know, but you pick yourself up and
Yeah.
keep moving on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so RPM Research, you know, supports lab animal medicine clinical veterinarians in their development, recruitment, and then also some of the advancement through outreach, industry awareness, some of our publications, career advice, and as well as permanent placement roles. So, you know, primates hold a special place in the industry, and, you know, in our practice as well. So whether you're willing to looking to build your team or build your career, you know, either way we can help. So yeah, so you talked about some of your entry into recruiting and kind of falling into veterinary, and sometimes you start with things and it evolves, but where's sort of the passion for veterinary recruiting coming from for you, Darla?
Excuse me, you guys out there, but I have a cold, so if you if you hear me,
force through.
yeah. So if you hear me hacking, I don't have COVID. I just need to get a drink of water. The passion for it came from the industry itself and from the veterinarians that I work with. I work with both large animal and companion animal veterinarians, and then I also go into practice management and up to COO level roles. But the passion that the doctors have in the industry is amazing to me. When I first started 12 years ago, the average salary that a companion animal doctor was coming out of school with was $65,000 a year annually. And it was simply that, you know, imagine that kind of student loan debt, and yet going ahead and forging forward for 8 years of school. And you know, they truly love animals and pets and what they do, and are excellent doctors. I've found over the years that I've had some of my veterinarians diagnose things, and I've told them over the phone for a cancer that my sister had. He was more right on in how she could handle it and if she took the right medication than most of the doctors she had gone to. Their patients can't talk. They have to be very passionate about diagnostics, and so it's been pretty amazing. And you know, they're not always the business people. They don't get a lot of that in school, so they really need somebody who can venture through like I can and be a liaison with them for the clients.
Wow.
that are out there, and they don't understand contracts. You know, they don't understand flexibility in PTO and all those kinds of things. It's getting better, but for the most part, that's still kind of a gray area.
Wow. And it's just kind of amazing. You know, I'd come across just some interesting you know, statistics as far as what's changed over even the last 4 years. So in 2018, there were roughly 125,000 vets working in the United States, about 75,000 in private clinics. In 2019, the baby boomers represented a third of the working veterinarians.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in 2018, the vets were under 65 or younger was 102,000. So bear with me here, but per the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, there's 77,260 vets as of March 31st, 2022. That is a 39% reduction in the workforce in 4 years.
Right.
Let me say that again, a 39% reduction in the workforce in 4 years.
Yeah.
Some of that was COVID, some of that was retirement, some of that was, just people not coming in. And when we look at how many people left, it's going to take a phenomenal effort to get people back. There's, in 2018, there was about 3,000 vets that graduated from the only 32 U.S. veterinary colleges. And then, foreign vets, made up maybe about 750. And this is, people eligible to work in the United States. So and of that number, in 2021 numbers, only 6% of those numbers of veterinarians go into lab animal medicine. So a subset of a subset of a subset. So we're looking at probably 12 to 1,400 lab animal medicine vets, and it's scary with all these losses, because let's look at what it takes to build a vet. So like I said, there's only 32 vet schools in the U.S. compared to 172 medical schools, and only about 10 to 15% of applicants are accepted each year. So it is feasible to say it is harder to get into veterinary school than medical school. There's just less opportunities, period. Yep. And then, in the U.S., like I said, 3,000 vets graduated from the 32 vet schools, and from the 500 to 750, depending on the foreign vets. So we're looking at how long is it going to take to replenish these issues. And it's looking at probably about 13 and a half years to recover to 2018 numbers, assuming that nobody retires. Nobody. And we know that that's not going to happen. So what are we gonna do about it? What does the industry need to do to hire more vets?
Yeah.
And what can we do to hire the ones that are out there?
Yeah, exactly. And I've watched the industry change again for 12 years in the veterinary world. And, the last 3 years in itself has been a tremendous change in the landscape of hiring veterinarians. And, on my side, and there's many, so we could probably do, a lot more of these, because I have a whole list. But one of the things that probably comes to mind the most, that I probably crap about, is academia in the veterinary world. And I'm sure they won't like me if they ever heard me say that, but I attribute the cost of tuition, which I did some homework on as well. And it said that in the first decade of the 21st century, our four-year universities increased tuition at 31%. And since 1963, the average annual tuition inflation rate has been 65.8%. The annual private two-year institutions have even gone up to 40.5%. So, you're adding that on to 8 years of school for your young people who want to be a veterinarian. And, you're pretty much pricing yourself out of the market. And
I've seen some people in at least lab animal medicine or lab animal medicine residencies coming out with $300,000, $400,000
absolutely
in debt.
Yeah.
And and then number of years ago with salaries, you were looking at anywhere between 80 and maybe 110, 120,
Mm-hmm.
and just the industry couldn't sustain it.
No. And I get on my high horse about this whole thing with academia. I mean, really? Where is this money going? I have a friend who's a teacher who said they honestly don't know what the middle layer between them and the superintendent, what they do every day. And I'm going to guess that that's probably the same in most of the veterinarian colleges. Sorry, guys, but what do you really do? Because you're not teaching them anything about business, which they need to know. You have so few of your young people going into owning their own practice, which would really help this become a more sustainable industry. and they're not doing their job there. And so for me, and as well as the interest requirements that you mentioned, Brad, I mean, there are young people and people who are looking at a second career who absolutely want to be a veterinarian, and they're not a 3.5 GPA and they can't get in. Now that makes no sense to me whatsoever. You know, and it becomes insulting to the other veterinarians and to the you know, foundations of the industry to say, oh, we can't lower our standards. I think you're going to have to, and not to the point where you're going to have to lower them, that we don't give quality care to animals, but you're going to have to be realistic about some of the people who aren't the smartest in the class will probably have the work ethic and the attitude that is needed to be a veterinarian, and they're not getting in. So they're doing themselves a real disadvantage that way as well.
Well, and measure what you actually, you know, can do. I mean, you know, the entrance requirements, you've got to look at some sort of, you know, standardized testing or grades or things along those lines. But I think, you know, in a number of years of industry experience, whether that's, you know, vet tech, you know, or some supporting role. But it is you know, difficult to continue with that. And, you know, to that point, even though there are individuals that, you know, do go to these veterinary colleges, in talking with them, very few of them have exposure to lab animal medicine.
Right.
And it's crazy. You know, there's maybe like an ASLAP, so like the American Society of you know, Lab Animal Professionals. So they maybe have a club, and that's it. So there's maybe a flyer that's out there. So you almost stumble or bump into it. And at least what I've seen in recruiting and trying to bring some of these brand new vets over, or even bringing people over from companion animal to lab animal, is, you know, they think that it would be this, you know, amazing giant, you know, requirement that you have to become a, you know, diplomate of the American College of Lab Animal Medicine. You got to do a lab animal medicine residency. Now, look, there is absolute value in that, no doubt, but it's not
absolutely.
the only.
Yeah.
It's not the only way to go. And if you find the right organizations that have the capacity and the capability to train you and to bring you in, they're out there if you take the opportunities.
Right. Exactly. And I, you know, what do you see a lot of the companion animal veterinarians crossing over into the lab animal medicine? Are you stealing people from me? Is what you're telling me?
Yes. I am. Now, of course, we do look for people with previous experience, but in individuals, you know, making that lateral role, if you're looking for some of that, you know, individual contributor, you know, there's all of the reasons why people, you know, would consider relocation. So, different company size, geography, family, you know, could be money, could be benefits, any number of different circumstances. But this is an opportunity to really jump and, you know, to stop dealing with the two-legged animals and focus on the four-legged animals. And that's some of the things that I talk with them about. You know, look, you still have to deal with humans, but you don't have to deal with pet owners. And that can be a whole different level of customer service. So you have to have, you know, professional client interactions, but it's not the same level of, you know, day in, day out, face to face with somebody who's extremely close to the situation.
I'm sorry, but I was just going to throw in there a lot of the people who are in clinical work, yes, don't want to have that interaction. But I also think that I'm seeing too is that people who have been in the lab area really want that. You know, they're like, I feel like I have no personal interaction with that side. So I think you're getting that crossover for many of the same reasons, just different angles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that both sides welcome the experience of others. It's not a brick wall that you have to, you know, run through. Right. It's a series of conversations. It's the right people with the right mindset, you know, trying to bring you in. and then we also work from time to time with foreign veterinarians. That is a whole process to be able to jump in. Do you on your side of the fence? Do you guys work with?
There's another one we could talk about. No, the industry has not been accepting of foreign graduates. They won't, and that's a lot of your small practices. I'm not sure, again, that's the general overall institutions or anything, but they haven't recognized a lot of the NAVLE, and they haven't the foreign graduate testing that they have to do, and also won't support green cards. And so, for that small amount of cost to a practice, when you come think about it, I believe, and Brad, you may know better than I do, isn't it around $10,000 to $15,000 to sponsor someone in a visa? Maybe you don't know either.
Depending on the scenario and the situation, and whether it's internal and external lawyers. I've seen 10, I've seen 15, I've seen north of that, and I've seen people get into questions in and around that time, and honestly, cut some ties. But when we're looking to recruit some of those veterinarians, the AVMA does a good job, and they have the ECFVG, where they look at the foreign veterinary graduates, and here's the list, and here's the accredited programs, and if you do this, then you can possibly go sit for an OBLE. If not, you've got to basically repeat your last year of veterinary school. Right. So you see a lot of these foreign veterinarians that come to the United States, and instead of pursuing that side of medicine, they decide to go and get their PhD and be this different side of research scientists. Mm-hmm. And it's a different position than a lab animal vet. This research veterinarian, you're going on to get your PhD in immunology, and you're doing immunology studies with the knowledge of veterinary medicine. As opposed to in the drug development space, there are still clinical veterinarians that are able to do research, but it may not necessarily be on an immunology study. This could be on different behaviors. This could be on different enrichment. This could be on different aspects of animal welfare, population management. So there's all sorts of varieties of research within lab animal medicine that don't require a test tube, if you will. It's a very interesting opportunity.
And that is, and I think that's so interesting. I love hearing you talk about this, because it's like, wow, that's a whole different side, than what I have been doing. And I find it fascinating to know that aspect is available to people out there. But, and I'm jumping ahead here, but is there a lot of difference or is it around the same compensation that you can make as both a lab animal vet and a clinical vet?
It all depends at what seniority level you're coming in at. So, typically within lab animal medicine, if you get somebody crossing over from companion animal, you don't necessarily see that same recognition, right? If you have a director of a veterinary hospital in companion animal medicine, is not necessarily going to be able to jump over and be the attending vet over, 15 vets in a, Reese's macaque, breeding facility. It's not gonna. There's similarities in some aspects, but once you get deeper and deeper, it changes. So I think that the career ladder is very different between those So what do you see as some of that career ladder on your side for vets? So coming out of school all the way to senior management positions in large hospitals, right? Or large hospital systems.
Right, and that's all changed as well. Like I said, 12 years ago, the $65,000 average, maybe 70. Large animal was normally around 60. a year, if you can imagine. And the same amount of 8 years of school. And gradually it's been increasing when the shortage kept getting more and more obvious, and more to the point where, and, it's now a crisis. You're seeing an average for a new graduate of anywhere from and it all depends on the location, and cost of living. So 100,000 to 120, 30,000 a year. That's a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, lab animal, you can be looking anywhere from 130 for someone with new experience, getting in the right opportunities. But if you're looking at a day clam boarded lab animal medicine vet with years of experience in the industry that they're going into, you're looking anywhere from 165 to 205.
Right.
Depending on market, and I'm kicking out Boston and San Francisco. You guys are out of the numbers. You skew it too much.
Right.
So
and we see that in our specialists as well.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I have just placed a companion animal doctor who actually was making $245 with their production. So that's very possible for them as well. We're normally when we start, we're normally calling a base salary plus production. So that's not a total compensation package. But I would doubt there's many doctors that aren't getting placed now for 140, 150 starting, probably. And it's good. I mean, they needed it. It was totally unfair. I was just incredible.
Well, supply and demand, and the demand is going up and the supply is down. It's if you want to play ball, that's the rules, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the coin you're on. But that's what it takes. And the old rule book does really doesn't apply. And like I said, with this veterinary shortage, to try and get up to where we were even in 2018. We're looking at 15 to 19 years if you're graduating the same number of, veterinary students. So what are you gonna do? You gotta open your mind. And my God, everybody seemed to have bought a pet during COVID.
Everybody, the increase in services alone during COVID have really added to this crisis. They're expecting by 2023 there will be well over 1 million pets that just will not be seen by a veterinarian, simply because there aren't enough veterinarians to be seen. I'm already starting to see some of my clients close on Saturdays, and a lot of them are just simply not seeing any ER at all. They're closing it at 5:36 and saying, you're going to have to go to a specialty hospital. We just can't ask our doctors to be on call. So that increase alone, Brad, has been mind-boggling. How many millennials went out and bought a dog? It's just amazing to see them all trotting by my house, and as they're walking their dogs. Good grief. So it's been a huge thing in just the last 2 years.
Wow. And you get a lot of vets that are just going out, working on call, working backup, working relief, and it's almost like the traveling nurse situation. You can work a lot of hours in a short period of time
for a lot of money
at that high rate.
Mm-hmm.
Have you now, and that's great if you're of a certain mindset in career space, but you can really get burned out doing that.
Right.
And you definitely see some burnout in this industry. I don't know if you see it.
All the time. Oh yeah. We have veterinarians on the companion animal side and large animal side that are working 60, 70 hours a week anymore because they can't find enough help and none of their doctors. So they're burning. All the baby boomers are retiring or they're selling to corporate. So you've got corporate, that's a whole nother discussion that's came in and changed the entire landscape of the small animal veterinary world, and not for the better. And you know, you also have the difference that has happened in the gender differentials to used to be 80% male, now it's 80% female. And you know, these young women have gone to school for 8 years, they're getting married in September and saying, you know, gee, I only really want to work part-time. So they're not helping fill that gap. You know, and there's just multitudes more of things that are going on. Yeah. But I think they can be countered. I truly believe that they can be countered, but it's going to take the industry as a whole to sit down and respect each other enough to listen to the changes that need to happen. And that's including you and I, who touch base with, you know, with the doctors on a different level than an employee and or a student, every day, and listening to what we have to say about what can be done to help this.
Yeah, well, and I think just understanding what's actually available out there. You know, you know, in some of my, you know, earlier searches, you know, years ago, you'd look at, you know, veterinarians, and honestly, if you see somebody with an MPH or a master's in public health, they have very little interest in doing hands-on clinical medicine.
Right.
That public health sector, you know, really, you know, likes that the veterinary side to talk about some of the zoonotic diseases for public health. So it's amazing that you have to go get your DVM before you go get your master's. Like,
right.
Isn't
that crazy? I know. And I look at that and I always think, okay, so they went here to come back here. You know, again, look at the tuition cost. I mean, is this a racket of some kind? I really have an issue with some of this cost. $300,000 to $350,000 worth of student loan debt. Come on. You know, to get the DVM and then go back and get your master's. Come on. You know, I'm on my high horse. What
are you seeing what are you seeing your industry's response to some of that, you know, rising tuition costs? Are they helping to offset some of that? Are they just saying we'll pay you a little bit more money? Are they doing anything? Do they notice?
You know, they're doing all of that, but you know, that's mainly corporate America. I mean, in the veterinary industry, the Banfields and the VCAs and the Blue Pearls, and the NVAs who can have the kind of cash flow where they can say, hey, you know, we'll take over your student loan debt, or we're going to give you $50,000 to $100,000 sign-on bonus. It's unrealistic. And you know, look at some of the best doctors you have here are your independent private practices, and they can't do that. So
yeah,
I'm trying to help them and handhold them through doing some of this, helping with student loan debt. And I think that's a big plus that the private practices can do to compete. It is a huge burden for these kids. You know, that's $700 to $1,000 to $1,200 to $1,500 a month alone in student loan debt. And if they can put together a program where they can take some of that burden from them, that's going to be a real winner for them.
So I've seen, you know, at least one of my clients, and they've done something pretty fantastic. So in the number of veterinary recruits that we've been, you know, bringing in, you see some of the people that are in the university setting, that are in the public, you know, sector, and they can't leave. They've got almost sort of what the farmer would call the golden handcuffs. They've got 10 years. If you do, you know, the public service loan forgiveness program, if you stay in for 10 years, then your debt's wiped. If you leave 9 years and 4 months in, you still sit with the debt. Is kind of my high level understanding. But I do have a client that's matching student loan payments up to like $1,500 a month, but you have to make your payments. So, you know, we're going to help you out, but you gotta help yourself. So, and I think that that's been significantly more beneficial than just pure cash in hand.
Well, pure cash in hand. I think
you're going to adapt to your means.
Well, yeah, and you know, when what really is hard for me, and I consider myself a career coach. I've been doing that for a long time and been writing resumes and helping people, you know, understand LinkedIn. When you're giving out that kind of a bonus, people don't realize they're also paying taxes on that gross number. And a lot of your younger people are not business savvy enough to know that they're going to be paying 30-40% of that back in a lump sum when their taxes are due. So that's really not a great way. But it's so enticing. It's such a great marketing scheme.
Oh yeah. Oh, you hear the numbers and this and that, and then you know, there's certainly other recruiters out there that you know, espouse this. But what about the non-competes? Are you seeing the non-competes tied to those bonuses, and what are those doing?
Yeah, you're seeing that as well. Non-competes became a really kind of a talking point in the companion animal side as well, and large. And when I say that, I mean small animal and large animal. Is that, you know, when you used to talk about a 10 to 15 mile radius non-compete, that really left a lot of people almost, again, stuck. If they didn't like where they were working, they had no choice. They had to stay because there weren't that many practices outside of that border that they wouldn't have to relocate. So there is some real feedback coming back that, you know, they're going to try to lighten those loads. And then the retention bonus is going to be for how long you stay, whether that's 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. But there again, pros and cons, you also belong to whatever practice that's offering you that as well. You know, so they're gonna
right. Well, and what's the goal there? Is to, you know, is it the golden handcuffs to chain somebody, you know, up, and, you know, but are you at that same point offering additional career opportunities to that person, or are they on a shelf and they have no movement, and you know, no upward mobility whatsoever because you've tied them in? Then you are you own their career and their progression at that point.
Right. And I think that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. I see a lot of this going on, and they're stuck. You know, they're a wellness doctor, they're giving vaccines, and that's all they'll ever be. They'll never know advanced surgery, you know, and they're not utilizing the skills in this medicine that they really went to school for. And I think that's a shame because they're backed into a wall of, hey, I'm paying you this much, and I'm giving you these kind of benefits, but this is where you're going to be for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
You know, if it's in corporate, independent practices are doing a much better job, and I tend to stand by them a lot more. I have an affinity for them, because they do have that real fortitude of, I love medicine and quality, and I love people, and to really put it together to what it's supposed to be, and that's the wellness, and yet being able to not go to specialists for everything, so they keep their medicine in-house. You become a real doctor. You know, you learn how to practice medicine in those kinds of situations. And
yeah.
So I think those are the things that I can be really helpful with, because again, you've been going to veterinary school is tough. I mean, some of these requirements and I mean, they're just absolutely fried and worn out by the time you talk to them in their clinical year. And I can help. You know, I can help you as well. You know, and I can teach you these things that you don't know. I can help you not being in the feeding frenzy of getting 25 emails in a day is what some of my students are getting. You know, they're overwhelmed. They don't even know where to start. And they need someone, you know, who can walk them through this, who knows what it means, who gets it, who's been and seen, you know, all the angles.
It's funny in talking to some of the, you know, lab animal medicine vets, you know, and explaining that I'm a recruiter and I recruit, you know, clinical veterinarians, but on the lab animal medicine side, like, I'm sorry, there's no giant, you know, production bonus, you know, we're not here to snare you into this and that, and I don't work on, companion animal medicine. They get beat up with the same number of emails, all of that fun stuff from people that just don't understand their industry at all. Yeah. What's important? What's the career, growth and trajectory look like? What do you have to do in your career to be able to move to that, right. next level? Right. And, what do you want to be? Do you want to be, an attending veterinarian? Why do you want it? Some people want the title, but there is a difference between an attending veterinarian at a, 15,000, mouse facility versus the attending veterinarian over, 14,000, non-human primates. That's a horse of a different color. There's still the regulatory aspects. No pun intended. So what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And how do you want to
right.
get there? So those are some of the things that we talk about in our calls.
Yes. And